stacks on her mind, grinding all day, hustle refined, shattering ceilings, she's fierce and untamed. Boss is her title, wealth is her game.
So high-earning women can make confident decisions and live the life they truly deserve. And if this is not your first rodeo with us, you know I love tying music with the topic we're going to discuss today. And we have been listening to Lizzo, one of my favorite contemporary artists, because you know I'm an 80s kid. I love 80s music, but this artist is just hitting it today with her song, It's About Damn Time, right? Right, April? Lizzo is on point with this message. It's about damn time for women to step into becoming confident when it comes to their money. Listen, I'm not saying that wealth creation is easy, even though I'm in finance, but it's not hard, especially once we put our minds to it, because deciding that you deserve wealth is all about mindset. And this show is all about creating that space for women to have those big goals, to have those big conversations, and have big money energy, which is why I love this Lizzo song. And it's all while making financial success feel simple and totally within reach, because it is. Mm-hmm. And for every woman who's ever thought, listen, I make good money, so why doesn't it feel like it? And where is actually my money going? Why do I still feel stressed when I look at my business finances? And I've been there. So I'm not speaking out of turn. Well, you're in for a treat, because today we're joined by the amazing and incomparable April Stronek, fractional CFO, money strategist, and the founder of the Money Clinic. April helps entrepreneurs go from overwhelmed to confident by decoding their numbers and giving them a CFO level roadmap to clarity, to profit, and to peace of mind. Now that's a big thing to do, April. She's known for her ability to take complex financial topics and make them feel human, empowering, and actionable. April, thank you for jamming with me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. That was fun.
And, you know, all the things that we're going to talk about today is exactly why you're here. You've actually made it your mission to help entrepreneurs actually understand their money and not fear it. And that's not an easy thing to do. So let's start with your story. What actually inspired you to create the Money Clinic? And what gap did you see in how women were being supported financially?
Well, I think my story is not unique. And that as an entrepreneur, we were passionate about our products and services. So my husband and I owned an outdoor retail business together. And we were really focused on top line revenue and growth for the sake of growth. Probably some ego in there as well, if I'm being honest. And
that's what I loved about you, even when we met at the Vibe event, is how vulnerable you were, and that you don't like wear any mask, like you put it all out there. And I think that's what makes this a much more impactful conversation, right? Let's just be real.
Well, let's just be real, because, you know, so many entrepreneurs live in entrepreneurial poverty, and we really need to, you know, and that would be my story as well. At one point we had 31 employees, and we were just taking whatever was left over, and we felt, responsible for 31 employees. And I remember laying awake on Wednesday night wondering how it's going to make payroll on Thursday because of that responsibility. And I think, we're just so ingrained as entrepreneurs, top line revenue at all costs. And if we also just take a look at any of our financial data, we look at the P&L and we run our finger down the spreadsheet and say, oh, I made a profit this year. Well, why is there not money in my bank account? And so, that was our story. And I really felt that there's got to be something better than this, being an entrepreneur, than just slaving 60, 70 hours a week just to take what was left over. And so really started to study finance and behavioral finance, and just really said to myself that when I get myself into a different position financially with my businesses, and we ended up selling everything, that I was going to make it my mission to support other entrepreneurs in the journey. And that's what I've been doing since 2017.
Yeah, and I think when you were talking about lying awake at night on Wednesday night, thinking how you're going to payroll Thursday, I've had conversations with particularly women because I feel like women feel even more responsible to just take
Mhm.
what's left after
Mhm.
after they pay their employees, and they are often not thinking about the bottom line. The top line revenue is great, but when you don't have it in your bank account at the end of the day, does it really matter? And I think this all just kind of goes back to the fact that every woman I work with has that money story and has those emotions, those feels around money. So
Mhm.
I'd love for you to talk about why you think women feel so much shame and avoidance or stress around their finances, even when they're earning well. But we talked about the fact that for a lot of women, they often aren't even sure how they're doing, but they might be stressed and wanting to make sure they take care of everybody in their company before they even think of taking care of themselves.
Yeah, I think it comes back to, as women entrepreneurs, you've hit the nail on the head that we're really passionate about our product, we're passionate about our service, we're passionate about the communities that we serve. But in my experience, very few women entrepreneurs think of themselves as business owners and think of themselves as, you know, as looking after the business. And then even fewer are thinking about the financials of the business. And so what they tend to do is advocate their financials to somebody else, whether it's their bookkeeper or their accountant. And then what I find is that the bookkeeper or accountant, or what I call your wealth care team, is the tail is wagging the dog in that they're making the decisions. And there's so much shame for women to not express themselves that, I don't actually know what my bookkeeper is talking about. I don't actually know what my banker is talking about. I don't actually know what my accountant, my lawyer is talking about. And I don't want to show that I don't know. And they're the experts. So obviously they know better than I do. And then it's, as a business owner, it's the proverbial, like, the buck stops with you. So then when things do happen with the wealth care team, that the bookkeeper maybe, is my story, she over got emphasized what her skill level was. Let's just put
Yeah,
it at that.
seen that
Um,
movie,
or the accountant that never gets back to you,
right?
and you're waiting for your year end. Like, so many times I've talked to business owners, and I'm like, your year end was 4 or 5 months ago. Like, where are your financials? Well, they're busy, they'll get to me when they can. And I think we just put so much of our trust in others, and we have to keep the pulse of our financial. We have to step into our role as chief financial wellness officers of our business. Not to say that we have to be the bookkeepers or accountants of our business, but we cannot take our eye off the ball when it comes to our money. And so we have to step into this money power. And I started my career as a financial advisor. You've had a successful career as a financial advisor. The advice that women get out there,
It's
because there's
crappy.
not a lot of us.
It's
Um,
not
and
usually great.
Right. And it doesn't always fit with women's values either. And so you add that layer on as a business owner. I had a business owner come through one of my courses, and I teach you how to talk to your accountant and your bookkeeper and learn the language of GAAP. And she actually went to her accountant and said, I have questions about this, that, or the other thing. And he asked her why she's being so difficult.
I,
Like
I,
that.
I was actually going to bring that up. So I'm so glad that you did. Why is she being so difficult? Are you
Mhm.
serious right now?
Right. And I mean, I work with health and wellness professionals, and I had a doctor who has a very successful clinic, who needed an operating line, and she went to the bank, and the bank, her account manager asked where her husband was, that he was going to have to come in and co-sign or say, you put your name down as president. That's not right. That's in 2024. Like, we're
You're
not talking
kidding
like,
me.
no. So
Yeah,
of
I mean,
course
the more
they,
things change sometimes, the more they might stay the same. And you touched on so many things that I want to unpack a bit more. One, around taking that CEO mindset where the buck stops with me, and not sort of outsourcing all of this to people who might not be as passionate about your business, might not share the same values, as you. And the other piece about the respect that sometimes female business owners might get, where people might feel that they don't owe them information in full, right? Where they don't need to tell them everything that's going on. Don't you worry your head. We'll manage that. So some of it might be paternalistic, I find, and where even in that scenario, that professional might feel like they're taking care of you versus giving you what you need, like empowering you. But then some of it might be just utter disrespect, where they talk down to you and don't make you feel like you are deserve to know what's going on in your own business. I've had clients, they're like, could you come with me to the meeting with the accountant? Because they're so intimidated. And these are lawyers. They're like, could you come with me? Because I have no idea what they're saying. And I feel ashamed, as you mentioned, to say that I don't know. And, so decisions are being made simply with a yes, because they don't know what their other options are. So I love the fact that you talk about giving, empowering women with the language to use with their financial professionals. So they feel empowered to have those conversations that they need to have about their money and their business and how they're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, the same happens with me. Like, oh, would you actually ask my bookkeeper about why my dividends are in a shareholder loan? Like, could you ask those questions? And I mean, I'll happily do that. But at the same time, when I'm working with a business owner, I do guide them on, again, you've got to step into being curious. Curious about your finances. Financial leadership in your business is your competitive advantage because others are not acting with curiosity. And it's not that you're bothering somebody, or it's not that, you weren't, you if you wanted to be an accountant, you would have went to be an accountant, but you didn't. You decided to open this business. So why would you ever put that kind of pressure on yourself to know the role of what the accountant does? And vice versa, the accountant can't come into your business and do what you do. So, why do we have them, it's not on this pedestal, but like, why are we not being curious? And why are we not asking these questions of our wealth care team? And one of the biggest sort of red flags for me is if somebody can't meet you where you are and talk in a language that you understand, or is not answering the questions to where you feel comfortable, they don't really deserve a spot on your wealth care team.
I was going to say, do they even really deserve, do they need to be in that space with you? Like, is that the right person for you? 100% agree. Because if they're talking in language that you don't understand, and it's kind of like how you were talking about making finances simple for the people you deal with, do they understand it? Do you know what I mean? Because if they can't make it simple for you, do they even understand what they're talking about? And the fact that they don't feel, they feel entitled that they can keep those conversations away from you and make you feel shame about it. And that's some of the reasons why I find hiring professionals will turn away from those conversations, because they already feel the weight of all of that, the shame, the being talked down to, the disrespect. And that's a reason like that could lead you to just go, you know what, let's leave it to the other people. They're so much smarter, aren't they? Maybe not. And just going back to that whole CEO mentality, it's your business and nobody understands a business better than you. And if you have aspects of your business, like you're talking about, the bookkeeping, the accounting, what have you, you deserve to be equipped with the information so you can make good business decisions. You know what I'm saying, right?
Well, nobody is as vested as you are in your business, and nobody has as much on the line financially as you do in your business. So, they work for you. And I say that about, with your bank as well. They work for you.
Exactly.
And if you're not getting the products and services you need, there's another branch across the street, and you can walk yourself over there, Lizzo. Because it's, like I just feel for women, there's so much loyalty, I think, as well. Well, I have this all the time. Well, when I was first starting my business, this accountant was really great and really helped me out. Yeah,
That's
okay,
nice.
that was 10 years ago.
Nice.
And you haven't heard from the guy since last year. And so, staying loyal to somebody that 10 years ago was a good fit for you, but they've obviously moved on. It's time for you to move on as well. So I think as women entrepreneurs, we have that loyalty factor as well.
Again, yeah.
So again, it's your money that's on the line. If you're audited by CERA, it's your money that's on the line. Everything
That's
filters
right.
it down.
That's when you know it's really on you. So it's so crucial from everything that you're saying that women step into their CEO power and
Hmm.
acknowledge the fact that they have to make sure they have the right people on their team to take care of them. And if they're not taking care of them, maybe it's time, as you said, to revisit your team. And I'm going to talk about some resources I'll be able to offer, along with, of course, the fantastic April. But if you are someone who doesn't have good financial professionals in your corner, including bookkeepers, accountants, I'm going to offer a vetted list for people at the end of this. So stay tuned for that. For all female, by the way, all female bookkeepers and accountants. So I'll talk a bit more about that. But let's jump into now. Even when you have a good, accountant or bookkeeping, maybe that's not even enough. Let's talk a little bit about the aspect that you bring to this conversation with business owners. And it's about that whole not CEO and then CFO thinking. So how does a fractional approach, how does a fractional CFO approach things maybe a little differently? And what
Hmm.
changes when a business owner, what changes for a business owner when they start thinking like a CFO?
Well, I always say, let's take a look who's on your wealth care team. And usually your first hire is going to be a bookkeeper because you need those daily transactions. You need the compliance, you need the numbers to make any decisions that you have around growth. And then we're going to be adding on the accountant. And then, but also on your wealth care team is your banker, is your lawyer, is your financial advisor. And then what I call myself as your chief financial wellness officer, who's really acting kind of as the liaison between the business owner and those professionals and taking a look at the numbers that matter to the business owner. Because a lot of times with accountants, it's very transactional and very compliance driven. And
Correct.
inside of my course, Wealth Care 101, what I say is I'm going to give you the foundation in regards to GAAP, but GAAP as a business owner is crap because what we really have to understand is we need these numbers and then we need to extrapolate those to understand what are the drivers inside of our business that generate cash flow. Because if your business is going to be successful, it needs to have positive cash flow. That is it. That at the end of the year, you have more money in the bank than you did at the beginning of the year. That's the equation. And
Cash is
so
king, right?
cash is king,
And
right?
queen, and queen.
And queen, cash is queen. And, we always talk about, what are those vanity measures that we all look at, which is revenue is vanity, profit and cash flow, that's sanity. And so what we do is when you step into the role of the CFWO is just take a look at what are the drivers that are creating positive cash flow, which are the three drivers are revenue, profit, and then looking at your balance sheet when it comes to cash flow. And so what we do is we take a look at those three drivers, and then we have drivers within those drivers to make sure that we're seeing what is actually impacting cash flow inside of the business. And when we talk about revenue, we're not talking just about top line revenue. We're talking about lifetime value of a customer. We're talking retention. We're talking conversion. And yet we're so drawn to it's just got to be top line revenue. Just churn three people through. No, it actually costs a lot of money to churn people through.
That's
You
exactly
actually
right.
want to increase customer lifetime value, increase retention. That actually generates more cash flow than you would well know, and I know as well as what marketing costs to bring a new person through the door
Yeah,
versus somebody that you've
absolutely.
already developed a relationship with. And then from there, we look at the drivers of profitability, which is expense management. Um, Usually for most businesses, their biggest expense is their people, but their people
People,
also drive profit. And it's a hard conversation when I have to have with a business owner. We talked about this at Vibe when I come in and say you just don't have the business for the amount of people that you have on. Like there's too much capacity here, and we're going to have to write this model. And that's not easy to do. And it's really not easy to do for female entrepreneurs who feel so responsible for their employees like I did. And so they'll hang on to people when they don't have jobs for them to do or the revenue for them to coming in. Like I said, I was responsible for 31 people. Been there, done that. Don't ever want to wear that t-shirt. I hire subcontractors. And Marnie talking about building a $40 million business off the side of her desk with all subcontractors. That was like inspiring.
And you need to hear these stories because you if you don't see it, you can't be it, right? You don't know what's possible.
I love that. And I've been using that in my courses just to say, you don't have to build it this way that we've been told. And then we look at the drivers around, great if you have lots of sales on the P&L, but if it's all sitting over in AR, that is not going to pay your payroll. So we're looking at accounts receivables. We're looking at your liabilities. We're taking a look at the at the debt that you have and managing that inside of the business. So as the CFWO, the role that I come in is to pinpoint what are those drivers and how are they affecting cash flow, and how do we, and I don't like to concentrate on more than 3 at a time, 2 to 3, because if we try to do everything all at once, we'll do nothing.
Overwhelming.
Too overwhelming. And so that's how we work it through. And my approach is, whether right or wrong, like I've had business coaches, mainly men, say, oh, this is not a good model. But my model is that I work more on a consulting basis. So I build the systems for you. I walk beside you with the systems, and then give you the wings to fly. Now, some people still want accountability. And so we have those programs as well to keep the accountability going. But we build the systems for you. And I really think that that's really kind of been missing in the whole coaching model around, you need systems. And I find, with systems, and you'll know this, when we have systems, it eliminates the chaos. And when 100%. Things do get stressful, we know that we revert back to our old habits. But if we have systems in place, I think it was Zig Ziglar that said, have a problem making a system, it's not a problem anymore. So we help build these systems as rinse and repeat that can increase your profitability.
It is about relying on a predictable way to run your business, and running your business predictably is all about systems. And I think something that you were talking about before about, people having, like, business women feeling responsible for their staff, that's the biggest expense they have. Yet these are the things that are keeping them up at night because it's eating into their cash flow. Are there other cash flow blind spots that you see that we should be talking about when it comes to hiring entrepreneurs?
Yes. So I think the biggest thing as well is, I always talk about we need to start with your financial why. And so, it's interesting. You can go around the room or a networking event, and women have their elevator speeches down and their why. We've all watched the Simon Sinek TED Talk on, your why. But I'm telling you, if you don't understand your financial why for being an entrepreneur, your why gets pretty old pretty quick. And, they say most businesses fail in the first 5 years. They're the lucky ones. I'm looking at the businesses 5, 10, 15 years that are still not paying themselves and still not understanding what their financial why is. And so, I've had women come to me and say, I have a profitable business. And I'm like, great. How much did you pay yourself last year? Well, I'm reinvesting it back in my business, or, I'm reinvesting it back in my business, or, I'll take in 5 years or whatever, when the business is getting going or what have you, then I'll start to take an income. And I'm like, you don't have a profitable business. You don't have a profitable business. You don't have a positive cash flow business if you are not paying yourself. So what we do is we take a look at their personal finances and cash flow and see what are their personal drivers, what are their financial goals and dreams, and reverse engineer that into the business to say, okay, if you need $180,000 after tax to run your personal financial household, well, we got to run that up through the ladder and take a look at what is your pricing, what is your viability, what is your gross profit margins, and include your financial why in the model to be making sure that you're paying yourself that on a consistent basis. And if not, you're not cash flow positive. The second thing that we take a look at is what I call real revenue, or what in the accounting terms is called gross profit. Because so many times we're like, I'm $1 million company, I'm a $10 million company, but your cost of goods are $9 million or $5 million. So you're not a $10 million company, you're a $5 million company, and you have to run your company as a $5 million company. But what we see is they're running it as a $10 million company. And then when it comes time to pay their mats and subs, their materials and their subcontractors, they don't have the money for it because they've been running it off of 10 million and not 5.
And it's go ahead, the third, because I thought you said two, but three is even better, because I'm just thinking about this whole blind spot. I'm still pondering your first one, which is the blind spot of your financial why and not having enough to pay the bills. But so I'm very curious to hear what your third one is.
I think you asked me for 4, so I've got four for you.
Oh, 4. I just said, tell me what the blind spots are. And I know that there's quite a few, because these are things happening because these business women are running hard and not paying attention to like the money that's coming in. So please go on.
The third is what is real profit, right? So we know that the profit on your P&L is not real profit,
That's
right? Your P&L just shows you how profitable your business is over a time period. It doesn't actually equate to money in the bank. Exactly. So what I ask my clients to do is we start out with put 1% of your revenue aside and tuck it away into a savings account. And if you can keep that going for 6 months, you've got a truly profitable company. And then we start to ratchet that up. What I find is that women entrepreneurs, they say, okay, I'm profitable. I'm like, okay, well, where is it? Like, you don't have it set aside anywhere. Well, no, I'm reinvesting it back into my business. And here's what I say about that. Like, if you were investing, you could have invested in any company. You decided to invest in your own. If you were to buy Amazon stock and they had a bumper quarter and you got a dividend, and let's say just old school, they send you a dividend check in the mail, you wouldn't say, you know what, Jeffy boy, I'm going to return that dividend to you and have you reinvest that into Amazon. No, you would call your financial advisor and say, reinvest this for me, or you would use it to go to Costa Rica or what have you. We don't treat our businesses like that, right? We just don't. We like reinvest back in, which I feel is an expense, not profit. And we never take, like, you could have invested in any other business. You decided to invest in your own. So therefore, as a shareholder of your business, you should be receiving a dividend or a bonus for investing in your business. So that's another blind spot that I see about the difference between profitability and true profitability. And the last one is a cash flow driver, which is accounts receivables. Like, it's a blind spot where, and I find women business owners do this all the time. It's like, well, my sales are great. I don't understand why I can't make payroll. And I'm like, let's look at your aged receivables. You've got somebody on here that hasn't paid you. Now I'm going to get.
Please get that bee in your bonnet. Get that bee in your bonnet about this.
They haven't paid you yet for 6 months of work, and you are still working for them. And they owe you tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you're too shy to ask for the money, and yet you're telling me they're your best client. I'm sorry, the client that isn't paying, right? The client that isn't paying you and is getting work from you for free is not your best client.
That is actually galling. That's a volunteer program right there.
I love that. I'm going to use that. I'm stealing that.
Feel free, because that's a volunteer program. Ladies, it's all about show me the money is what I'm hearing. Because if it's not supporting your lifestyle, it's not supporting, your opportunity to invest for the future for yourself. Like, would you invest in you based on what April is saying? Those are big blind spots, April.
And yet again, I see them, like I said, I work with high earners. I work with professionals, and there's still, again, these are the common blind spots that I see time and time again. And, I would say that was my story too, right? We've talked about that,
Been there, done that
that was
too.
been there, done that, have the t-shirts. And what I shared at the Vibe as well is that, I had to anchor this in something else, and I had to anchor it. I have two daughters, and I want a lifestyle and to provide for them, and of a certain, uh, what I want it to look like. And that's my financial why. And so, like, if you're not paying me, you're taking from my kids. And why should I be supporting your kids and not supporting mine? And so that's how I step into my value around true profit, around real revenue, around my financial why, and making sure that I get paid is stepping into, for whatever reason, I couldn't do it for myself, but I'm doing it for my girls. You're taking from my family, and that doesn't, my mama bear comes out, and that doesn't sit right with me.
No, and you say that, and I just think your volunteer or things that you want to do, social programs that you want to be a part of. That's what you do after work, right? While I'm at work, show me the money. I want to make a profit, and I love that you're encouraging women to think carefully about being intentional about profit and not leaving money on the table. So I want to actually dig into that. How can you help women build profit in their business instead of hoping? Because what I'm hearing is after, not having a business that supports their lifestyle, not necessarily being a business that they would invest in, not chasing after the clients that they're working for free for. What do they do to build profit in their business instead of hoping that there's money left over at the end of the month and then worrying at night that they're going to make payroll?
Well, I think the biggest thing as well is, like, you've got to understand what you are good at and do that time and time again. What I see when I work with, business owners, and I have a modeling of like a revenue calculator, and I only have 4 spots for your products or services, because I go in and I take a look, and somebody has told someone along the line, you know what you should do? You should offer this. You know what you should do? You should offer
Oh my
this. And then
gosh.
all of a sudden they have this litmus list of all of the things they offer. And again, boring quote, I think, is Zig Ziglar again, of, when you make your customers choose, you confuse them and then you lose them. And so it's,
Well
oh,
said.
you got to narrow your product offering first in order for you to be profitable, because you got to get to one of these questions you asked me was delegation or automation. I say automation all day long, because when you can automate something, or you can have systems in place that you can do something quicker, better, you're going to be more profitable when you have that order. And so narrowing your product line, systematizing it, is going to be boosting profitability. And so that's why I say we got to look at real revenue or gross profit, because you've got to have enough gross profit in your business to look after your operating expenses, pay back your debt, pay yourself. And so, a lot of business owners, they get into owning a business because they think they can do better than what their bosses are doing. They want to be in charge of their time. They want to be in charge of their money. And then they end up, entrepreneurs are the only people that trade 40 hours a week for 80 hours a week.
That's
And then
right.
they start to see that, the boss actually wasn't all that wrong about what's
Terrible.
going on. Yeah, terrible. Um,
Terrible or horrible bosses is what I was thinking about the
Horrible
show.
bosses. But very few take a look at the viability of their product and service before they get into it. But for those businesses that are now in, they have to take a look at their pricing and their cost of goods. And their pricing, they have to bake in profitability, and including their financial why, and they have to step into that. And sometimes when I work with a business owner, I know one business owner in particular, she hadn't changed her pricing for 7 years. 7 years. And so when we started to take a
Inflation
look
is
at,
all I think of.
right, when we looked at her gross profit margin over time, of course it was declining. And so she had to go back to those, she had 7 major contracts. And so she went back to those people and said, okay, this is what I need to increase the pricing to. And she was nervous. Absolutely. And all of them but one left. And so they were all like, we've been waiting for you to, like literally, we've been waiting for you to increase pricing. And then the person who left after 6 months came back to her because the lower cost provider couldn't deliver on the value that
Probably
she
the biggest
did.
pain in the butt of all of them.
Right. Well, there might be that too. But I think like
Also,
we
they did
just,
stay after all.
they came back. Yeah. But it's just like, these are things that
They
we
did.
tell ourselves. It's our own limiting beliefs around charging what we're worth. And as well, we have to stick to, this is what I need to get for pricing. This is what I need to hold my cost of goods are, because I have to keep my gross margin at this level in order for me to, as I said, pay my people, keep my lights on, pay myself, and eradicate my debt. And so it really starts with taking a look again at what are your products and services. And in bookkeeping, what I say is, you've got to map out your chart of accounts. And the first thing you got to do is take a look at where all your revenue is coming from, instead of just having it all lumped together, because you actually don't know which are margin builders and which are margin detractors. You could be selling a product, and this has happened with a lot of business owners that I've worked with. When we start to break it out, I'm showing them that product, and it's usually the one they start it with, is no longer profitable for you.
Right.
And that's, for women, that's emotional. They're like, but that's what I started with, and that's what people wanted. Well, yeah, 10 years ago, but you've evolved since then.
Right.
And so, we've got to not be emotionally attached to our products and services. We can't be emotionally attached to our pricing, and we have to stand in that power. And it comes with knowing what margins and what profit you have to get.
Yeah, those are really important insights. I kept hearing over and over again that book, and I can't remember the name of the author, but it's like profit first. Profit isn't something you think of after. It's about being profitable first, starting a business that's profitable, potentially narrowing the focus of what you're offering so you can automate instead of delegating, because delegating is costly and more complex. But it's all about your why and making sure that the business that you're creating, that you're manifesting, is aligning with the lifestyle you want to create for yourself and for your family. So I really appreciate you bringing that insight. And one thing I really love about your work is that you help women step into that CEO identity that they really. I think that more and more women are realizing that they need to embrace. So, what changes do you see when a woman stops outsourcing her confidence to somebody else, and instead she actually owns her financial leadership?
I think, like you said, it's just when you step into that power, and lead with curiosity, what we start to see, it is confidence. Like, I take a look at the women who come through my courses, and we do 8 weeks, and then I give them a break, and we come back for 8 weeks. They're different on week 16 than in week 1, and it's all about, that confidence of, and knowing that they don't have to know all the numbers, and they don't have to be their
No,
bookkeeper, and they don't have to be their accountant, but they do have to step into the role of CFWO, and they do have to advocate for themselves. And so that's why it's called wealth care, because just like we have to advocate for our health, we have to advocate for our wealth as women. And the only person that's going to do that is you.
yeah,
And women have been left out of the money conversation for far too long. When I started in this industry in 1999, I was only one of two women around the management table. And so,
I can
we have to
imagine.
sit, and also, I don't think the financial industry has changed that much,
No,
but like,
not at all.
well, that's a topic for another time. But, it is stepping into, like I always say in my courses, as soon as we come through, we're dropping the shoulds. We should all over ourselves when it comes to our money. And so we need to drop that shame, that shoulding, and get, education is power. And so what I say is, you don't know what you don't know. And I've tried to put in my courses all the things I didn't know. And so that you learn from my mistakes, and I don't know everything, and we'll learn from each other. And I think having this safe space and creating this safe space where women can, I did one whole session on insurance, and you can't believe the questions that come up. And they're like, I was really intimidated to ask these questions about insurance. But I think we need to create this safe space for women, so that we can have these conversations. we can stumble a little bit and nobody's going to make us feel lesser than,
We're judged,
and
right?
no judging. And we have to, at the Vibe event, it was, the women that came
Oh my
after
God.
afterwards,
Oh my
and I'm
goodness.
like, you're asking me this question? Like, I've had you on a pedestal for years and you're asking me this question? But I think we do that. Like, we think, oh, she's got her shit together. She's a, multi-million dollar company. And then you realize, okay, it's just another zero. That's all that it is.
That
But
it
we,
is. It's so funny you say that, April. Sorry to cut you off. I was just thinking about all the women. I'm sure as a financial advisor, you saw this too. All the women out there who you think have their shit together, and they just have been so intimidated. They've not been sure who to ask, like the things they really, really want to know about money, because
mm,
they're worried about being judged.
oh, totally. And then you add that to being an entrepreneur, and now have the added responsibility. I think, yeah, like it's time for us to step into our power. I think the world would be a completely different place if more women had this confidence in their money and were CFOs and CEOs. And I just think we take a different approach. And we need to have this safe space for people to learn, and these education you and I were talking about as well, that we're heavily regulated by our governing bodies of what we can say and what we can't say on social, on our websites and what have you. And
Totally.
yet you have people that don't have the experience that we have that can go and say anything, and women are so, I don't want to use desperate, or so thirsty for knowledge when it
Yeah.
comes to money. They're getting it from the places that are not regulated or don't have the experience. And so, again, we need to get the word. Oh, that's my mission and your mission. And thank goodness that you
Totally.
do what you do in the podcast to bring this to women, because women are thirsty for this knowledge. Women
Yeah.
want to be stepping into this power, but we just haven't had the resources or know where to go, or the bro
Right.
club that's thumping their chests about top line revenue, when I'm telling you, those guys are stressing out at night about how they're making payroll too.
Yeah, we don't have to follow what's been done. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the Bible. That's what
Yes.
the path we have to take. And I'm so glad you mentioned and you kept talking about safe space. I don't know if you remember at Vibe, I talked about, being a financial confidant, and
Mm,
for our communities, women in particular, to look for confidants. And confidants aren't just people that you can have safe money conversations with. That's extremely important, because we are tired of being talked down to and judged, and that's really important to have somebody that you feel comfortable having conversations, and people are open. But the other part is confidence, right? So that you have confidence in the person that you're working with, so that they're credentialed and they can speak to you in plain language, but you know that they are actually people you can have confidence with, because they're regulated and they have, the financial specialties that you need. So asking the right questions and you equipping them with the questions to ask the financial professional is so crucial, because then you can actually go, okay, then you can take a deep breath. You can exhale and say, okay, now I'm ready to have a conversation with you, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree.
So now, April, it's time. I have some short questions. Actually, before I ask you some short questions, I would love for you to give us something actionable, which is a simple thing a listener you think can do this week, so they can start putting into place right now, just to feel more in control of their money. Whether she's
Hmm.
making, six figures, multiple six figures, whatever the case, because we know at the end of the day, knowledge is power, and the people who we think have it all figured out might not. So what's the tip? What would you say?
I'd say the I say the biggest thing is having dedicated time to your finances. So I like to have financial Fridays. So every Friday, first thing that I do is I go in, I review I look at my bank accounts every single day for
Me
my
too.
business. And
With our
yeah, I
moms.
mean, who doesn't? But then on Fridays, what I do is I get into my QuickBooks. I look at my transactions. I don't reconcile or anything on that side of things. That's for my bookkeeper. I run, and actually you talk about Mike Michalowicz and Profit First. Mike
Yes,
Michalowicz is one of
that's
my
me.
mentors, and I was a Profit First professional for 8 years. So I run the Profit First through my business. I pay myself each and every Friday. I pay myself the same amount each and every Friday because I know what my financial why is. And what we know to be true in studying behavioral finance is that for every 5 minutes that we get interrupted, it takes our brain a half an hour to get back into task. So if you don't like
That's
finances, you're going to
right.
do everything you can, right? My apartment was never as clean as it was during exam time. So we got to have this dedicated time. And I think once you look at having financial Fridays, and that's what I encourage all of my participants to do, then you start to see, okay, I'm not scared of this. There's no monster under the bed. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Open up those, you know, emails from your suppliers, open up what's coming from the bank, and really starting to step into that power and having that dedicated time. And, once you start to get into it, it's kind of like at the gym. You go to the gym, the hardest part is walking through the door. Once you start to
Right.
lift the weights, you're going to start doing the reps. It's the same with your finances. And so Financial Fridays have been a huge game changer for me inside of my business and for my participants as well, is just having that rhythm and starting to have the habit of healthy financial hygiene.
Love that. Love that. I love that idea of just being in that routine so that it becomes like almost automated, right? Like you get into the habit, and habits are really the key, I think, to any financial success is good financial habits. So now I'm actually ready to do what I love doing on the Hiring Women podcast, which is our signature Hiring Women firing round. Are you ready,
Okay,
April?
I'm
Quick
ready.
answers. That's all we
Okay.
need.
Okay.
Okay. First money habit every entrepreneur should master.
Curiosity.
Oh, curiosity. Okay. Numbers dashboards. Dashboards or spreadsheets? What's your love language? Would you say on the numbers dashboard? Is it spreadsheets, numbers dashboard? What's your love language?
Oh, spreadsheets.
Okay. One financial mistake you want women to stop making.
Abdicating their financial power to others.
Okay. And if cash flow were a personality type, what would yours be?
Curious.
All right. Your favorite money ritual or weekly routine?
Financial Fridays.
Okay. Financial tool or app you would swear by?
QuickBooks.
Okay. All right. What's one thing high earning women need to stop apologizing for?
Being high earning.
That's actually a really, really so true. Okay. CEO mindset mantra that you love.
Always be curious.
A,
You see
B,
a theme
C.
here?
A, B, C. I love it. Okay. In one sentence, what does financial confidence feel like to you?
Freedom. It's not even a sentence, it's just a word.
All right. Those were amazing. Thank you so much for bringing both brains and heart to this conversation. Honestly, I think high earning community, we got I feel like we got so much mileage, so much value. I really appreciate this, April. This was a really powerful
Thanks, Jackie.
conversation. Just all the clarity, all the compassion in terms of just reminding women not to feel judged and to stay curious. And that's a strategy that's exactly what high earning women need. So for everyone that's listening, if you want to understand your numbers, feel in control, and step into that CEO version of yourself who actually owns her finances, you need to connect with April and explore the Money Clinic. So we'll have all the links for your contacts in our show notes, April. So don't worry about that. And if you love this episode, please share it with another high earning woman who deserves financial clarity and confidence. So that's it for today's episode of the High Earning Women podcast. And if you actually were into it, I'd love for you to stay connected. Follow our firm's LinkedIn page at Team Jackie Porter, because that's where we also share insights, resources, and updates that you won't want to miss. And if you'd like to keep listening to more episodes of this podcast, you can find us on all of your favorite audio platforms, Spotify, Deezer, Amazon Music, Player FM, and so much more. Just search for the High Earning Women podcast, hit follow so that you never miss a conversation, and feel free to like and share our podcast with a friend if something resonated with you. So remember, wealth isn't just about earning more. It's about feeling safe. It's about feeling powerful and purposeful with the money that you make. We hope that April's insights inspire you to take action because it's about damn time, ladies. So until next time, keep building, keep earning, and keep living the life that you want. Be in touch soon, high earning community. See you later.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you so much,
all
April.
day, hustle, refine, shatter, receiving.